Back in early May of 2022, Todd McShay released his way too early 2023 mock draft. With the 10th pick in that way too early mock draft, the Washington Commanders selected cornerback out of the University of Alabama, Eli Ricks. So the question that has followed Eli Ricks this entire offseason has been, what the happened? How in the world does a 6'2", 188-pound defensive back who played in the SEC underneath LSU and Alabama, who was once upon a time considered a top 10 pick by some mock draft analysts, go undrafted? That's the subject of today's video. How Eli Ricks once upon a time went from being considered a top 10 type prospect to going undrafted to fighting his way in a pivotal moment in a preseason game with a pick 6 to elevating himself onto the 53-man roster of the Philadelphia Eagles to the last act. Boy, what did we see Sunday night against Tyreek Hill with an undrafted free agent locked up on him. All right, y'all, let's get it. What's up, Cerebral Football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. When evaluating Eli Ricks, two big things came up that seemed to have hindered his draft status. The first one being injuries. The one he suffered during his sophomore season at LSU, and then what occurred during the early portion of the 22 season at Alabama. Long story short, guys, he suffered some injuries that seemed to have hindered his performance coming into the 2022 NCAA football season. The second thing that I heard had to do with his athletic testing at his pro day. Putting up a 4.6 40 and a 7.44 3-cone in particular, those two drills, people weren't so happy about that. And his relative athletic score, his RAS score, it was quite low. It was in the 4s. But Eli Ricks became a very complicated evaluation because you have a very prototypically sized boundary side cornerback. It's 6'2", 188 pounds, over 32 inches in the arm reach. You have the physical tools that you look for at that position. However, there's this complicated background with injuries and whether that had effect on his testing numbers, because to be real with you, the film did not match that testing number. I'm not going to say that Eli Ricks was ever going to test in the top 10 of the NFL, but I was pretty shocked by the numbers that came out. But you know what they say. It's not necessarily about how you start. It's about the way that you finish. And when Eli Ricks arrived here in Philadelphia, and when he finally got his opportunity to step on the field, boy, he showed up. He had that one big, shining moment. Quarterback makes a pivotal mistake, stares receiver down. Eli Ricks, playing in the SEC, having this type of quality competition, sees what's going on, jumps the route, and he's off to the races for a pick 6. And just like that, the enigma of Eli Ricks in Philadelphia, it was in full effect. There was no turning back at that moment. There was already a certain segment of the fan base that was really high on this kid, but now he just went mainstream within the Eagles community. We fast forward, there's some complicated things going on with the initial Eagles 53-man roster. And what do? They keep 101 defensive backs on the initial 53 because they didn't want to expose young players like Eli Ricks to the waiver wire. And thus, Eli Ricks' time in Philadelphia, it would begin. What are some of the names who have followed this similar path that Eli Ricks is following in the NFL? Men such as Chris Harris Jr., J.C. Jackson, Brent Grimes, A.J. Boye, Kenny Moore, Tremaine Williams, Roderick Hood, Levi Wallace, Huzilio Hansen, sticking to the theme of Philadelphia Eagles, Herm Edwards, Travarius Ward, Nikel Roby Coleman. This isn't an uncharted path, but it's definitely a difficult path. With that said, what we saw on Sunday night, it can't be unseen. We watched an undrafted rookie free agent match up against, ironically, a very underrated player coming out of his draft class, which he was a 5th-round pick, but probably one of the greatest players in NFL history to lace up cleats. I'm not just, saying this because Eli Ricks had a good outing against him. I generally think Tyreek Hill is that dynamic of a playmaker in the NFL. He's probably going to go down as one of the best to ever do it. Simply put, he was targeted 3 times in this game and he gave up 0 receptions. 0 receptions. As a matter of fact, over the last 2 weeks, He's been targeted 4 times, and he's given up exactly 0 receptions. 2 weeks, 4 targets, 0 receptions. This young man's not even playing outside primarily. The vast majority of his snaps are actually coming inside at the nickel position as the slot cornerback, and not necessarily where he's more naturally gifted on the outside. I would probably argue that Eli Ricks, and we don't know a whole lot because, we're judging information that may be somewhat being skewed by injury, but nonetheless, we would say that given the numbers that came back to us, the inside does not seem like a match for Eli Ricks' hips. However, somehow, someway, a savvy young kid is hanging out of place, but yet putting in real work and getting results. I wasn't an early adapter to this young man. I thought he had talent, but I was concerned with the testing numbers, and I went over those testing numbers when I broke him down after he signed with the Eagles. I wasn't one of these guys who drank the Kool-Aid right away. If I had to close this video, what I'm going to tell you is this. Eli Ricks has forced me to pick up that punch bowl and drink from it. He's that good. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all's time and attention, and I'll see you guys on the next video.